Alright, let's talk about functional groups and start with the simplest organic molecules, alkanes. If a molecule only has carbon, hydrogen, and no double or triple bonds, it is an alkane. But if there's even one double bond present, it becomes an alkene. So this molecule here, since there's just one double bond, just that one makes it an alkene, and this would be the alkene group. If there were a second double bond, it would still be an alkene. We would just say there's two different alkene groups on the molecule. And if there's even one triple bond, then it's an alkyne. Alright, now let's throw some oxygens in. If we have one oxygen and there's only single bonds, it's probably an alcohol, or technically a hydroxyl group. The presence of the hydroxyl group here makes this molecule an alcohol. Now let's look at two functional groups where there's a carbon double bonded to one oxygen. If the carbon double bonded to the oxygen is at the end of a chain, then it is an aldehyde group. Here is the aldehyde group at the end of a chain. The way you can know that it's at the end of a chain is if there's also a hydrogen bonded to the carbon. So this is an aldehyde molecule. Here's another molecule that's an aldehyde, and that's the aldehyde group on it. Alright, then if the carbon double bonded to the oxygen is in the middle of a chain, then you have a ketone group. So notice this carbon in the middle of the chain is not directly bonded to a hydrogen. It's bonded to this carbon over here and this carbon over here. And this is acetone. That's a good ketone molecule to know. You might also see a ketone group represented like this, or even like this down here. Notice here's your ketone part. Even though it's, there's only one carbon further out on the chain, it's still technically in the middle. And regardless of how big the alkyl group is here, this is still a ketone because it still does have a carbon double bonded to an oxygen in the middle of a chain. So this is your ketone group. This is a ketone molecule in the ketone family. Alright, now let's look at two functional groups where there's a carbon bonded to two oxygens. One of these bonds is double, one is single. And again, we look at the end and the middle of a chain. A carboxylic acid group is at the end of a chain. And here is the carbon that's bonded to two oxygens, one double bonded, one single bonded. This is kind of like an aldehyde being at the end of a chain with a hydroxyl group as well. So it's kind of like an alcohol and an aldehyde combined. And then an ester has that carbon bonded to two oxygens in the middle of a chain. So I just copied this carboxylic acid. We are going to turn it into an ester by making it this functional group in the middle of the chain instead of the end. So there, the hydrogen comes off the oxygen and we replace it with more carbons. And now it's in the middle of the chain. And now this is an ester group, and the molecule would be in the ester family. And one more functional group here, an amide. This goes beyond the realm of oxygen-containing functional groups. This is a nitrogen-containing group. So to turn our ester into an amide, all we have to do is replace the oxygen with a nitrogen. And that is the rundown of the functional groups. But now let's go back up and look at all our groups and figure out what suffix we would put on the name of a molecule in that group. And the first thing I'm noticing is that I put an extra E in alkyne somehow. That's just alkyne. Alright, so the endings of names of molecules in these groups. So if a molecule is an alkane, it's pretty easy, it gets an ane ending. If it's an alkene with a double bond, it gets an ene ending. If it's an alkyne with a triple bond, it gets an ine ending. And I'm having trouble with alkynes here. There we go, YNE. That's if your molecule has a triple bond, it gets a YNE ending. Alcohol, the last two letters of alcohol are OL, and that would also be the last two letters of an alcohol's name, like isopropanol. For an aldehyde, look at the first two letters, al. And there's an old song, you can be my bodyguard, baby, you can call me Al, oh, your long lost pal, call me Al. So if it's an aldehyde, call it Al at the end of the name. Ketones, the end of ketone is ONE, also the end of molecules in the ketone family. For instance, acetone, our molecule over here. Alright, moving on to carboxylic acids. This is the only functional group with acid in the name of the functional group. It's the only one with acid at the end of the name. Oic acid. That's the end of molecule name if the molecule is a carboxylic acid. Esters are trickier. Don't worry so much about esters, but a lot of times you'll see an O8 ending at the end of them. And amides are also pretty easy. The ending is the same thing, AMIDE.